The motion be agreed to. I call the member for Newcastle.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Speaker. I rise to support the member for Wallsend in this debate, particularly moving that this House notes the great work of bus drivers in our public transport system, but also noting the very increased levels of assaults on drivers, which is greatly concerning to me, and particularly in Newcastle, where the government is starting its experiment with privatising all the buses, plus our ferries, plus our new proposed light rail. I've got grave concerns about the safety measures that are put in place to actually replace the public transport with the private fleet. And having said that, I call on the Minister for Transport, as does the member for Wallsend and my other colleague here, the member for Port Stephens, to ensure bus drivers have the safest possible work environment. And I do come to this debate from two different perspectives, the first being the last 10 years of my life prior to entering Parliament. I worked in work, health and safety. And there is nothing more important than to the family of any worker and to the worker themselves, that when they leave that front door in the morning, that when they come, that they actually do come home. They come in that back door and that front door at the end of the day. There is nothing more important to friends and family that this occurs. And tragically, for the family of the business of the Brisbane bus driver, Manmeet Sharma, a very hard-working and decent person, a well-known figure in the Australian Punjab community, he did not come home to his family that night. But unfortunately, violence is not isolated against bus drivers in Queensland. In Newcastle, attacks on bus drivers are unfortunately not uncommon, and they're becoming more common with the incidence of amphetamines and ice in particular. And it is a tragedy for those people, such as bus drivers, hospital workers, ambulance workers, that they are becoming more and more common victims of pointless attacks from people under the influence of ice. Bus drivers in our community in particular don't sign up for this and don't deserve what may happen or have any fear when they go to their job in the morning or whatever shift they are on. I mean, there's an attack in the Newcastle Herald that is highlighted by the Newcastle Herald, I should say, with a horrifying video of it, of a menacing attack on a bus driver, and I've just got a copy of the article here. But to quote it, Matthew James McAllister says he can't recall brutally attacking a bus driver who was simply doing his job, but judging by the screams of the passengers on board, it will live with them forever. Doesn't even know he was doing it. In that incident, the attack was captured on camera and on phone. He thought he was drunk perhaps, but it does appear that it was he's under the influence of methamphetamine. I have grave concerns about the increased incidence of violence in buses in Newcastle after having talked to many bus drivers, and it's really about the transit officers that used to ride on Newcastle buses and trains, but over the last 5 years there haven't been many seen at all. And they raised that issue with me. I am concerned about that as the member for Newcastle and the public safety of people in Newcastle catching buses and trains and ferries. We need more transit officers in Newcastle, on the train lines, on the buses, to decrease this sort of violence. So I'm calling on the Minister, Transport and Police Ministers, to take steps to ensure that bus drivers in this area of Newcastle, Wallsend and the Hunter are as safe as possible. Engage with the RTB, with drivers and the broader community to ensure our drivers and passengers are safe while they travel.
The question is that the motion be agreed.